Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I am Ralph Labella.
And I'm Ron Sen, and it's the opening night of the Olympics. Does anybody really care? Well, anyway, there's a lot of stories going on in Sochi, and none of them are very positive so far. There's been issues about surveillance on guests, possibly athletes, and earlier in the show, in the today's activity, there was, in cross country, there were wild dogs, apparently the ones who hadn't been shot already, running onto the course, barking and interfering with the broadcast.
You're going to be hearing a lot of stories after these Olympics are over. I mean, I just hope no one gets hurt. That's what I'm hoping.
Well, obviously, travelers are staying away for the most part. They said there's very low attendance at the Olympics. I don't know what the networks and the organizers are going to do to try to rectify that. Now, I always wondered, what's your favorite Winter Olympics memory?
You know, yeah, thinking back, Dorothy Hamill, I loved those Olympics when she won the gold medal. She was unbelievable. I remember Peggy Fleming, too, believe it or not. I love figure skating, and those are the two memories I have, especially Dorothy Hamill coming in after Peggy Fleming.
The obvious answer for a lot of Americans is the 1980 hockey team winning the gold medal, beating the Soviet Union in the semifinals and then Finland in the finals. However, my memory is from 1968, where French native Jean-Claude Keely won the Triple Crown, the slalom, the giant slalom, and the downhill for his native country. And I'll always remember that as being kind of a superhuman effort and something that, I don't think it was totally unexpected, but it isn't duplicated very often.
Yeah, and what's his name, Ono, too, winning the short track.
Right.
Is it short track, speed skating, whatever
Right.
they call it. I mean, I really enjoyed him in the last three. Was it the last three Olympics? Or last two Olympics,
Last two,
anyway.
I think.
But two Olympics ago, that's when he was really top.
Well, and then there was Eric Heiden, who was in speed skating, but had a tragic fall, especially with his sister's illness.
But no, it's funny, though, about the hockey team. Everybody thinks about that the Russian game was the gold medal, Soviet Union game, but it
Right.
wasn't. You know, and they fell behind 1-0 in that game, in the gold medal game, and then they came back and played great. But, I mean, that's the best hockey I've ever seen. I remember Sweden, they beat Sweden, Czechoslovakia, they played Germany in that thing. I remember all those games. They were all great games.
Well, and the movie Miracle with Kurt Russell was really a great movie. Talked about how the team was selected and how they trained them, and really how he drove the team to the success they had.
But did Eruzione play it perfect? Didn't go pro. I mean, he just, he was the captain of the team, got that big goal against the Russians, and then, he doesn't go pro, which he wasn't talented enough to go pro. But, I mean, his speaking engagements, what he's done with his life since then, I mean, it's really gone well for him.
Well, we wanted to talk a little bit about coaching because we do a lot of coaching, and one of the emphases is on process. The reason we care about process is because you control process. You cannot control outcome because there's a lot of variables that go into outcome as far as your opponent, the conditions, the officiating, but you can control what you do. And we work very hard to develop a good process so that our players are exposed to both the fundamentals as well as the really ability to try to visualize the game and make good decisions.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, just about after every game I go home thinking, am I too hard on the girls? And, they're sixth graders. I mean, we just got finished with this year's freshman class. We had them 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And as you go up, you can push a little more and more because they know you. They know why you're there. They know why you're pushing them. In this group here, it's the first year we've coached them. And, and I push, I want the most talent, the best talent to come out. And if I think they can play better, I mean, they basically hear it from me. Then sometimes you go home and you think about it. And but what's been the major factor with me and me being able to coach the way I do is that I knew I always had Mark Pearson with me and I had you. And at one time I had both of you with me.
I think one of the things that I try to look at is where am I being deficient in my coaching? And one of the areas that I feel I need to do a lot better is not just giving feedback, but getting feedback from the players. In other words, after we've discussed with the players our concerns, how they can get better, what's their summary of our discussion? Number two, what's their priority or emphasis from what we've told them? And 3, what's the action plan to make it happen? Because I think sometimes we say, gee, we've gone over this so many times and they don't always get it. Well, maybe they're having trouble in that translation, and if they can explain to us what they don't understand, maybe we'll be able to give them more.
Well, you learn a lot about them, and they learn a lot about us. We put them in the best league possible. We put them in the Metro West A League, playing against the top teams around. And it's a better league than the River Valley A League, which I thought was the top league in the state. But this league here is very good. So we put them in there. What I've noticed with them, I mean, it's the first year they're playing against this type of competition, that there's so much pressure in the games when teams are going after them, 100%, that they're so involved in just making sure they make the right pass and whatever, that they forget about what you coach them at times. They're only 6th graders. After it's all said and done, the game's over, you realize it. But during the game, you're hoping that they can handle that type of competition and reach that level of play. And sometimes what happens mentally, it just affects them so much that they're constantly under pressure the whole game that they forget a lot of things that you coach them.
Well, I was watching a TED Talk recently. TED Talks are brief. They could be 6 minutes. They could be 20, about a variety of subjects. And the subject I was looking up was, how do you inspire people? Or if you're a company, how do you inspire consumers? And the discussant raised what he called the golden circle. And he said, on the outside, it's what you do. And then inside that circle is why you do it, how you do it. And then in the center is why you do it. And he used as an example Apple, computers. He says, they don't say, we build computers, how we use innovation, we make nice computers, buy our computer. They look at a very customer-focused approach to that. They want you to believe in their product and believe what they believe. So the same way for our coaching. I don't view basketball as I'm coaching a sport. I view it as I'm teaching players how to live their life better and to compete, to concentrate, to work toward improving constantly, to be a good teammate. All those things are great and central to your success long-term in life. I want the players to walk away from their experience with us saying, we're better people, we can be better students, and we're going to be excellent citizens in the long term. Sure, basketball is important, and we try to get a lot of information to them, but what's really important is how you develop as a person and what you stand for.
Yeah, I want them to know that if you give 100%, if you work harder than any other team, you're going to be successful. And they know success doesn't always come with wins. They know how we are. I mean, I've been happier after some losses this year than most wins because I knew we played to the best of our ability. And, like this last group we had, the freshman class, I mean, they reached their potential as 8th graders. They went up the summer after their 8th grade season, before they went into their start of their freshman season, and they beat an AAU varsity team in the finals. They played all AAU varsity teams, the best talent around, and they reached that level because they knew they had given 100% for 4 years. And I knew, and you knew, that some of the parents didn't want us to go in that league. They thought it might be too much for the girls. But we both felt that they were at that level now, that they needed that type of competition to reach that special level of play. And that's why we put them in that league. They ended up winning it. They ended up playing their best ball. And you look at that, and that's what our goal always has been. With our 6th graders now, they're talented enough, even though we know they have to get quicker. They're not the quickest team we've ever coached, but they're talented enough. And we're putting them through the different drills to get them quicker. We're using different drills than we did with the last group because the last group was very quick. And, we're making them run a lot. We're making them cut. We want to get them quicker. They're running an awful lot, but when we make them run, they're handling the ball at the same time. They're catching it, passing it, shooting it. So we're doing drills that they like, but we know we have to get them quicker.
Right. The last group, I think, was more committed to running as a philosophy, whereas this group, I think they would be happy to come down, pass the ball around, get a good outside shot. That's who they are. We're trying to develop a program where being able to apply and handle pressure, especially in transition, is fundamental to what they do. Now, when a coach plays a transition style via his or her players, they have to give up a lot of control. So a lot of coaches aren't very comfortable with that because they don't want the players making all those decisions, especially at higher speed. On the other hand, that's really the way the game is evolved. And if you want to be successful at a higher level, or if you ever want to play in college, you really can't be playing slow down ball.
Well, here's what it comes down to too, Ron. Last year they played in a league that they just dominated. It wasn't a good league. They didn't play against, when you play in leagues like that, I mean, it's great you're winning all the time, but you're not playing against the best. You're not playing against future high school all-star players, all-league players. Now they're playing against just about every game. They're going up against a future all-league player, no matter what league. And it's a different game. It's a faster game.
Right,
playing against
and
that
how it
talent.
applies, you see to cross sports is to hockey. You see the high school hockey team and the girls, they have a lot of young players who've had a lot of success at middle school level. I mean, a lot of them are still in middle school, and they expect to win. So even when they're playing teams that are very talented teams, a lot of times they're in the game because the players believe that they're going to be successful. They have confidence because they've been previously successful, and they're willing to play hard and take whatever coaching that Coach Rush and Terrio are giving them, and they're fun to watch. So you see the results of good foundation and development and growth of a program.
Well, you're also seeing that in the girls' basketball. You're seeing that with, I don't know that much about, with the senior class, we know Jill McGinnis is having a terrific year. Maeve Moriarty, who was coming into her own before she got hurt, was starting to really believe in herself as a point guard. You can just see it. She was getting more and more experience and more comfortable, less turnovers, and then she ends up tearing up her knee. And Shannon's a four. She's got other fours on the team who are strong players too. But I mean, that's the senior class. The junior class, we didn't know all that much about, but we know that Allie Nolan, she tore her ankle up, hurt her ankle. She's out for the season now. And Harding is having a good year. And then
Katie Sullivan,
Katie Sullivan, who my talk is that they're not using Katie Sullivan right because she should be the best low post player in the league. And she's not playing low post enough. And she doesn't, it comes to the identity. The team doesn't understand that they may have the best low post player in the league. I've seen a lot of the games, and I believe she is the best low post player. I don't know. That girl from Watertown, the center, who's going to, she's going to, I don't know if she's playing Division III next year, but I read in the paper. Sullivan's more talented than her, but, Melrose, the whole team, they don't understand that she could be dominating down low. But you look at that. But I really think the future of the team is this year's freshman and sophomore class. I think that's the future of the team, and I think there's a lot of freshmen that are playing. Some of them are on the freshman team, some are on the JVs, two of them are on the varsity, Kat and Lenora. I think next year they're going to be real strong with this sophomore class. And then you have Harding, Sullivan, and Nolan coming back, and there are a couple of other girls playing on the JVs that are juniors.
Right, and I think of the younger players, they have the capacity potentially to play a variety of styles. Usually if you think about basketball in a kind of sophisticated way, you're either going to try to dominate the ends of the court because you have a lot of size, or you're going to try to dominate the middle because you have a lot of speed and athleticism as well as quickness, so you can win in transition. And the players they have, I think, are flexible enough that they can do some of both. They got some good size players like Kat Torpy, Victoria Crovo, Olivia Smith. They'll all be able to do well at the ends, but they got a lot of speed and athletic ability, so they should do well in the middle. But usually you have to commit to one style or the other because it's hard to play slow down basketball and be a transition team. Yeah,
well, I think that what's really hurt the varsity this year is that Maeve got hurt when to me, she was starting to come into her own. I think she'd really be helping them now. And Allie Nolan not being able to play. Because the girls that are playing the point now, like Lenora, I was talking to Lenora the other day. I said, Lenora, you would be so much more effective playing the two. Because Lenora likes to knife to the basket, pull up with that jump shot. She's strong going to the hoop. I said, right now as a freshman, there's too much pressure on you. You can't play your game because, number one, you got the best defensive player on the team, the point guard, covering you. Now you got to beat her, and then you got to get into the lane. It's just too much for her to handle right now as a freshman. If she got the ball, within the, the three-point line, was able to make a move one-on-one, that's where her best abilities are. And then Kat, Kat's got to come in. They got to learn her better. She had that 19 points in one game. But, you also got to learn how to work with Katie Sullivan. I mean, you can't say because Kat got 19 points, she's not a star down low. Because to me, they're just not. Katie should be dominating down there. And for some reason, the whole team doesn't understand it. And, it comes from the coaching, too. That game when she scored 2 baskets in a row early in the game against Tewksbury. Then they don't get her the ball again. Well, I mean, what's that about?
Yeah, Lee Rose, former Purdue coach, wrote a really good basketball book called Winning Basketball Fundamentals. And he talks about playing hard and playing smart, but he also talks about maximizing your strengths and minimizing your weaknesses. Other coaches say it differently. They say shooting is not a democracy. You want the better scorers to get most of the shots. And it's really incumbent as a coach to direct where you want the shots, where you want the offense to go. Bobby Knight had a saying, just because I want you on the floor doesn't mean I want you to shoot. And you can be a dominant rebounder or a dominant defender or an excellent passer and not really shoot much, but still have to be on the floor because you're really valuable.
But just think about this, Ron. Next year, Wilmington, who's the second best team in the Middlesex League, I think, right now, right up there, they're losing almost their whole starting lineup of seniors. They're losing all those girls. There are a lot of teams I've been watching this year that are a lot of teams are losing a number of seniors that are their best players. You look at Melrose, right? Maeve's out, and they got Chan, there's like 5 or 6 other power forwards, so they're not going to lose much there. Jill McGinnis, they're going to lose huge because, to me, she's the heart and soul of the team. But you look at them up front; they should be the best team up front next year. You're going to have Kat, Katie Sullivan, not only them, Harding, is a very good rebounder. Victoria Crovo, Smith, a couple of those other girls who I don't know as well. But if they handle Victoria Crovo the way they should be handling her, working with her the right way, she'll be a star next year. I mean, look at that front line next year. And then you got the younger girls coming up. A lot of talent in that sophomore and freshman class. The guards, like even the girls in the JV team. Caroline Nolan was playing Guzman up there. You got the girl, one of my favorite players is Caitlin McGinnis, and then you got Nolan coming back from her injury, and Sullivan will be a senior next year. Sullivan at guard, she should be playing the 2. That's her position.
Well, it's always about long-term, as you like to say, the progression. You never really know how it's going to go until it goes. This year they had some injuries. They have a different system, and I don't think anybody would have projected things to be going the way they are right now. But next year you start with a clean slate. No reason they can't be very successful.
Next year they should be. I'm telling you right now, they should be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the Middlesex League next year. With the talent they have coming back, if they work the right way over the summertime, and this talent, if it all comes together the way it should come, the way I know it could come, they should definitely be one of the top 2 or 3 teams. And I'm making a prediction now, is that they beat Burlington Friday night 44-36.
All right.
Friday night, and they're going to beat Wakefield. They'll end up losing to Watertown. They should go 2-1 their last 3 games.
Well, there's a lot of good news in the high school. The girls hockey team is very close to qualifying for the playoffs. They have 8 wins. You need 10. Boys hockey is ranked number 19 in the ratings power index, and they're under consideration for the Super 8 along with other teams depending on how things go down the stretch.
Yeah, if they win their league, they may have a shot.
Yeah,
I mean, look what they did with Austin Prep.
And boys basketball has 9 victories, and they're on the cusp of making the tournament too.
Yeah, you heard Franzi's not coming back?
No, I didn't hear that.
He's not coming back. I read the paper today, the Free Press. He's definitely not coming back. And is it Spencer, the captain?
Jaleel Spencer.
He's been out 4 games, and coach is not sure if he's coming back. They think he might come back.
Well, they've done really well with the, considering the health problems they've had.
Know why they've been successful? What we talk about all the time. Their defense.
Yeah, they've got.
That's one thing about the girls. There's no excuse for giving up 80 points to an Allenton team and 70-something to Tewksbury. That's completely coaching as far as I'm concerned, and they should have been a lot better. The coaching has gotten better. They're playing way better defense. That's why they've been in these games. It's all about defense in high school sports. If you're a great defensive team, teams should not score more than 40 points a game. You should be holding them in the high school teams in the 30s if you're a real good defensive team. Now Merrill's are starting to hold them to the 50s.
Well, you saw Masco remained undefeated, beating Pentucket the other day in a game scored in the 30s.
That's
So-
what it's about. Lindsey Shanahan was a great defensive player, on-the-ball defense. That's what it should be with this team. In-your-face defense, total man-to-man. Forget about these traps for now. Become a great team, man-to-man defensive team. Become a great team there, then start fooling around with the other stuff.
Well, in 1867, John Bright said in the English Parliament, trying to rouse Parliament from its apathy on the issue would be like trying to flog a dead horse to make it pull a load. We've probably pretty much beat this horse to death. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Paul Rabel from the Boston Cannons, and you're watching Let's Talk Sports.
Welcome back. Well, we've just finished with Super Bowl weekend, and it may not have been the world's greatest game, but if you're a big Patriot fan, you're probably okay with the outcome.
Yeah, I was kind of rooting for Denver. You know, I was kind of rooting for Manning. People, it's funny how the Patriot fans don't like Manning because of Brady. Big deal. You know, and they're all voting for, a lot of them rooting for Seattle. I wanted Denver to win. The only problem was that Seattle's much better than them, especially with that. You know, I worried about the defense. They're physical. You knew they were here with a good defensive plan. Carroll's excellent at the defensive end as a coach.
The NFL is a copycat league. There's no question about that. And Denver, led the world in touchdowns, in points, set the all-time NFL record for scoring and everything else. And they came up totally flat as a pancake in the Super Bowl. So now you're going to see teams saying we need these bigger, faster linebackers, the big safety who can crush people across the middle. And, I'm not going to say that Payton Manning's going to not come back next year, but I don't think you're going to see the Patriots drafting a speedy wide receiver in the first round as their first priority.
Well, a lot of people are asking now. Everybody was saying they need a speedy wide receiver, and now they're saying, well, what about a safety that can hit? I look at the Patriots next year, and look at it from the positive end, and you say to yourself, they could have one of the best linebacking corps in football if Mayo comes back healthy. With the way Collins ended up.
Well, Collins is the kind of player that would fit right in this bigger, faster, tougher team.
But no, you have now. And how about Hightower, who stunk in the middle of the season, played great at the end of the year. So now you got, if Mayo comes back healthy, you get two linebackers who can cover tight ends and backs coming out of the backfield. Now you have Mayo and Collins. Hightower played really well. Spikes, if they're going to keep Spikes, which I don't think they will.
No.
You just put him in there against some running teams. But not, you have Wolford coming back and Kelly next year. In Jones, Chris Jones had a pretty good year. Milano had a pretty good year. And who's the middle guy again? The guy that took
Silver Salinga.
Salinga, if he backs up, put him in. Like Seattle uses 8 defensive linemen. So
Well,
the guy that's overrated, though, Ron.
Gregory?
No, Ninkovich.
Oh.
All I hear is people saying, I said, Ninkovich, where was he? Yeah, Ninkovich is starting to turn out like Slade did. Remember Slade after a couple of years? All you saw was him rushing from the outside, him being blocked to the outside, and then playing with 10 defensive players because he's 10 yards up the field because he got blocked. And what's Ninkovich doing almost every play now?
Well, the good news was if the Patriots had somehow beaten the Broncos, they would have been the ones on the bad end of that beating. Probably not quite as
yeah,
bad.
but you know how I am. You want him playing. I mean, people say they would have got killed. How do you know?
Well, one thing that I was disappointed from is that I thought Denver played they played not to lose by as much as they could have. Manning is throwing 3-yard passes down 3 to 4 touchdowns.
He was afraid of getting hit, I think, after a while.
Well, it was not entertaining. Talk about setting the record for most completions. It was an empty record. Really, I agreed with you. I thought he did play afraid.
But too, Ron, that snap turned the whole game around. That one snap. Because didn't Seattle come back down and kick a field goal to make it 5-0?
Right.
With that kickoff. So they're up 5-0 when Denver should have had the ball.
Well,
that hurts. It starts getting into your head, even a pro.
When it's 22-0 at the halftime, you're not going to come back from 22 against Seattle's defense. They were too strong. And then they have the opening kickoff of the second half, run back for a touchdown. It was a coup de grace.
Yeah, but you look at that. But I'm excited about the Patriots team next year if they can finally stay healthy. They need to get a safety who can hit somebody and make it. When a receiver comes across the middle, worried. But Hightower, I was really happy with the way he played at the end, and I was happy with Collins. So if Mayo comes back, who has better linebackers than them?
Well, the NFL was really fortunate. I think the game time kick temperature was 49 degrees, which for New York in February is probably unheard of. It was perfect weather, which is why I thought Denver's passing game would be occasionally effective. And our former Patriot, Wes Welker, his head might still be ringing after one of those hits he took over the middle.
Yeah, but he caught how many passes? 8?
Did he catch that many?
He caught 8 passes. 12 were targeted to him. He caught 8. But, how about the commercials?
Well,
I'm watching a commercial. Just about every commercial, I'm saying, what is this about? And then the last 2 seconds after a minute.
well, I thought there were a couple of ones that caught my eye. I thought the Doritos time machine was pretty clever. Budweiser's always good because they're able to get an advantage
always the best.
with their animal
How about Ellen DeGeneres?
characters. I thought that was goofy.
Yes.
I thought the Maserati commercial was
Yeah, but you didn't know it was a Maserati, did you?
majestic, but who can afford to buy a Maserati?
You know what they have you thinking? They have everybody thinking, okay, what's this one going to be about? What's that one going to be about? So for like 20 seconds, you're listening to it, you're watching it.
But if I'm in advertising, I want to beat people over the head with, buy this product. If you see a Chili's ad, you see Chili's up in the corner, you see the food, you know what it is the whole time, makes you hungry, you want to go out and eat.
What was the best part of the Super Bowl? I know what the best part was for me.
Well, the halftime show,
Bruno Mars.
minus the red hot chili
Oh,
peppers.
what were they doing there?
It was, I don't even know. It was like they came out of a time machine.
I knew it was going to be a great show because I know how good he is. He's had a number of tremendous songs, big hits. He did a great job. What are they doing?
I was disappointed that they stole your jacket, though. No, but Bruno Mars is an exceedingly talented guy, and I love his hair, too.
But, I mean, they did a good job of picking him, I'll tell you.
Now, will they ever have another Super Bowl in a northern outdoor?
New England. No, they're going to one of the dome stadiums first. But they're saying by 2020, by 1819, that it may be here.
Where is the
Because of
next?
Kraft.
Where will the next NFL franchise be located? Will it be the Los Angeles, which can't seem to hold one, or will it be
That's what they're saying, LA.
Will it be London?
It won't go to London.
I think the problem is if you have a European team, you almost need a European division because you can't be going over there for a
The Players
play
Association
one
won't
game.
vote. They won't vote for that, and they have to vote for it too.
I would think so. Pete Carroll. Now he's got one of 3 coaches to have won both a college national championship and the Super Bowl. The other 2 being Barry Switzer at Oklahoma and the Cowboys, and Jimmy Johnson with Miami and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So, Pete Carroll's pretty much carved out a legacy for himself, whether or not people thought he was too excited to college in his approach.
But they said, even he said it when they interviewed him. He says, people think I'm rah-rah. But he says, we're the best prepared team in football. He goes, we're always prepared in our games. And I don't know. Did you know this? The general manager, is this Spencer? What's his name?
I don't even know.
He hired the general manager. It was
The coach hired the general
he
manager?
He's the one who picked the general manager.
Well,
That's why they're saying they work so well together.
the money aspect of the salary cap, a key for Seattle is they have 2 great players, Sherman and Wilson, who are making close to minimum money. So when those guys start getting paid, then the salary is going to come out of something else.
But Ron, the thing with Wilson, though, he had 5 poor games in a row. Then he comes out and plays a real good game. So that pass he made rolling to his left, that bullet pass at the sideline early in the game, that was a big play.
Well,
Wow.
They showed a few close-ups of him throwing the ball. See how tight the spiral was? How, it was right there. I give him tons of credit. Young guy. There are a lot of people using advanced football metrics to argue that he may be the greatest young player at quarterback as far as performance at this stage in his career. Doesn't mean he's going to be great.
In that type of a game?
No, is the sum of his career so far, the amount of winning that he's done early on in his career.
Well, a lot of that has to do with their defense.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of it has to do with that.
But he has good stats.
He's good. He's good.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's saying the guy's a game manager.
But he's playing on a great team.
Oh,
a
absolutely.
Perfect team, just like Brady early on.
Yeah, I mean, when Brady and the Patriots were winning, they had outstanding defense.
But you know what makes me sick, though? All these people that knock Manning. I mean, these people don't know what they're talking about. You know, Manning all these years has put his team in great position, just like Brady. You know, when they say he chokes in the big games. Well, half the time he gets his teams there that shouldn't even be there, and he's going up against great talent. And he's got to probably do it just about on his own, and sometimes he just can't do it. So and everybody's cheering for that because they want him to lose. Maybe it's because of his father and his idiot brother there.
What do you think about the discussion of should the Patriots, quote, load up, which I'm not sure if loading up means on the defensive side or the offensive side.
Well, they don't have to load up on a defense if they just get one or two players, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Look at that defensive line. Even though I don't like Wilfork in there when it's a passing situation, but they get Kelly back. I like Jones, Chris Jones. You know, I like him, and Wilfork will have a backup now. And that linebacking core, they got a real good line, and they're young.
I don't know how effective big guys recover from Achilles injuries. Now, Wilfork obviously is a huge guy. The Achilles tendon is, you know, about, take this pen and cut it in 4 pieces. That's about how wide it is. So
you got to hope that he's all right. I mean, that's what you think it's got to be. He comes back healthy.
And he's going to have to restructure because he's due for a huge cap hit, and the Patriots are pretty close to up against the cap, although, you know, we don't know whether they're going to get any salary relief on Hernandez. Isaac Sapowooga, the guy they got from the Philadelphia team, he's got a big cap hit that's going to disappear.
And what about Edelman? If they lose Edelman, they're in trouble.
Right.
They better not lose him.
And the question is whether or not they will pick up Amendola's salary or not, because
isn't part of it guaranteed?
Part of it is, but part of it isn't.
Cut him.
So I wouldn't be surprised. You know, you might have to choose between Amendola and Edelman, and at least right now, I think Amendola is hurt. He played hurt, but you know, Edelman was more productive.
Well, you don't want to lose Edelman. Edelman's the #1 priority. But then you got to hope the 3 young receivers get better.
Edelman and Talib.
Oh, Talib, yeah, on defense.
Because Talib is when Talib is playing at a high level,
he takes away the big receiver. You need him.
Right. So
then you hope Ryan gets even better.
Right. Now, a little bit of news today. The Atlanta Falcons cut a cornerback that might be kind of a useful player.
They won't.
Asante Samuel.
He's gone. I mean, the Pats won't.
He's one of the reasons they didn't win one of those Super Bowls, because he couldn't catch an interception right in his hands.
Well, it was up here.
Yeah, well, he's a defensive back. You're supposed to be able to catch that.
Well, how about Seymour not holding on to Manning?
Well, he was being tackled.
He got grabbed and they didn't call it. So. And then Law was right there too.
But anyway, and then there's a lot of excitement right now about Boston College getting 30 draft signees into their program. The only problem is they got 1 in the top 300, and Alabama got 5 of the top 15.
Yeah, Alabama's #1. Where was BC rated?
40.
40th? That's not bad.
No, it isn't bad, but you know, we don't have any delusion that BC is a top 10 football program. They're a good program for New England.
Well, they got a good coach now, though.
Right.
You know, he's a real good coach, and
well, he seems to be attracting some of the Florida guys who have an extra year of eligibility, and you know, a lot of the players they've got are not household names from this draft, because we don't know high school talent in the area. A lot of the players are prep players playing at private schools. So, but anyway, there's a lot to look forward to there. Mark Whipple is back at UMass.
They said he had a good. He's got a good crop.
Yeah, he's a pretty good coach. He was coaching in the NFL. As well.
But plus they're playing top-notch competition now. I mean, I think he'll be perfect for that program.
So, as of right now, how far away do you think the Patriots are from being able to get back to the Super Bowl?
I don't think they're that far away. I think it's going to be. Someone was saying Indianapolis. Forget Indianapolis. They're saying they're #1. I would rate it again. You'd have to, if Manning comes back, it's going to be Denver and the Pats right behind them, with Indianapolis behind the Patriots. And I think the Patriots. I mean, if Belichick really looks at it and gets a couple of players that he, signs Talib, signs Edelman, those 3 young receivers come through, improve. Dobson. I think Dobson could be a strong end next year. Tompkins and.
I don't think there's any doubt that Andrew Luck is going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league for a lot of years to come. But you know, he's not always the most consistent
And
guy.
their defense isn't that good. I mean, they're going to win. They're going to beat. They beat Seattle last year. They beat Denver.
Didn't they beat San Francisco too?
Yeah, they beat 3 of the top teams. So I mean, they're talented. They're talented, but they're not in the Patriots class. I think the Pats, if Belichick does a good job this year, you know he's going to get some free agents. But you know what makes me really excited about the team? You know, again, Talib and Edelman are keys. But I love the linebackers now. I mean, look at what they have now. I mean, they have 2 linebackers. They always had Mayo.
Well, I just hope that Brady's not going to be washed up, you know, within the next year. You know, somebody put a tweet out on Twitter that said, quote, Giselle, does anyone expect my husband to throw the ball 10 feet over the receivers and catch it?
But, Ron, his whole career, I know when he had Moss, he connected with Moss. Moss was tall and lanky, ran a lot of them down. Brady doesn't have a good touch on deep passes. He has a great touch on short passes. But deep passes, for years he's always overthrown his receivers when he throws deep. Constantly overthrows them. And that was a big play to Edelman that time.
Well, we'll see what the window of opportunity
But
is.
he's still good. He's smart.
We'll be right back.
This is Chris Eck of the Boston Cannons, and you're watching Let's Talk Sports.
Yes, so the NFL season is over. Absolutely the worst months for sports, like by a mile. I mean, come on, February and March. What are you going to do? I know, let's wait for spring training. Well, actually, how about this? Something I'd like to get out of the way that I've been looking forward to talking about. I did want Seattle to win the Super Bowl. You know, it's not so much because I kind of hate the Broncos. Yeah, it is. I was happy for Pete Carroll, former Patriots coach. Didn't get a fair shake here. Yada, yada, yada. Good for Pete. One of the best defensive performances I've seen in a long time. However, it was absolutely aided by some not-so-great play by the guy I would like to talk about today, because I would say once and for all, can we stop saying that Payton Manning is the greatest quarterback of all time? Oh, I'm sorry, it was if he wins this game, then would we have to consider him? Well, I guess we don't have that problem now, do we? Actually, I didn't believe we did beforehand. And I'm going to tell you why. You know what? It's hard to, compare eras of any sport. You know, when you look at basketball, they were all slow guys running around the court, and now they're very big, fast guys running around the court. Doesn't mean that you can't compare certain intangibles. Bill Russell would have been a monster today. But I digress. Let's talk about football, shall we? You know, the game has evolved a lot. It is a lot more of the cerebral quarterback that has to read defenses, coverages, schemes, tendencies. I mean, in the 70s, it was a known fact that most quarterbacks went out the end of the season, whatever they did in the offseason, it was anything but study opposing defenses. And I'm talking about all the way into the late 70s, that's how it was. So how could Johnny Unitas be the greatest quarterback? Well, let me tell you something. I may not have been alive at that point, but I've seen the footage, and I know of the rules of the game. And let me tell you something. They may not have had to read coverage, but let's just say this. Offensive linemen back when Unitas played, they had to use their hands. They couldn't use their fingers to grab onto jerseys. All right? And I know there's holding on every play, in case you noticed. Well, there really wasn't holding on every play back then because they couldn't use their fingers. So to stop a guy like Deacon Jones who was coming in, and he had this move called the head slap, which meant he would come around, he'd wind up, and he would whack the side of your ear hole, which meant that he had a free shot to the quarterback. And as the guy tried to protect himself from getting head slapped on the next one, well, Deacon Jones just ran around him. There was a lot of that. Okay, so when you get into the rules and ways things go back then, well, quarterbacks basically had 2 seconds to get rid of the ball because there was no 3-second rule like there is today. Like you can't take 2 steps after the quarterback releases the ball. There was none of that. Quarterbacks got driven into the ground on every single play. If the defensive lineman could get to him, he did. And you don't think that shortened the guy's career? So, what? It's easier to play quarterback now? Well, let's just say that it used to be you could throw 28 touchdowns and be MVP of the league. If you throw 28 touchdowns today, you'll probably be the 19th best quarterback in the league. But let's not just talk about stats. Let's talk about how much harder it was to get those stats. You would have wide receivers lined up on the outside, and they had this rule that was called the Mel Blount rule, because Mel Blount was a big physical cornerback for Pittsburgh that beat you up all the way down the field. You know why? Because he could. And you know why else? Because he could. Wide receivers did not have free runs all the way down the field. They were getting hit all the way down the field. The Raiders, we all know about Jack Tatum. We all know what a crumb he was around these parts. But you know what? The guy could hit like there was no tomorrow. And, you know, talking about all this helmet stuff and concussions, he wasn't the only safety. Every safety on every team, their job was to take a running start, line up a potential wide receiver that was going to catch the ball, and they would helmet to helmet. It was all about physical brutality to get that ball out of the wide receiver's hands. Why do you think that 68 receptions used to be an all-pro? You know what 68 receptions is today? You're gone. Come on. 100 receptions in a year didn't even exist until the 80s. Really. And that's why when I think about all of the evolution of the game, it's no different than hockey taking out the red line to increase offense, because that's what people want to see. I should say that's what people want to see. Because, you know, I don't really know where the talking heads and where the commissioners get their information. I think competitive balance is what they want to see. Now, Pete Rozelle once said parity. What? You want every team in the league to be 8-8? Oh, yeah, that's really good. Good idea. Personally, the way they have done it in the NFL, Roger Goodell should be tarred and feathered and put on public display as far as I'm concerned. The guy is more worried about people having their socks up the same length, and yet, okay, we're going to take the violence out of football now. And we're going to make it so that quarterbacks cannot get hit. Let's see. Unless a guy gets a clean rush at him and spears him in the midsection, as long as he doesn't use the crown of his helmet, he has to spear him with his shoulder. That's okay. Can't go helmet to helmet, automatic first down. Any kind of face mask whatsoever, automatic first down. Don't believe me? Go on YouTube. Look at any highlights from the 70s and 80s. Guys get tackled by the face mask all the time. 1 out of 10 get called. Look at the stats. Why do you think the best quarterbacks of all time before 1980 completed 55% of their passes? Do you know what that did? That got you kicked out nowadays. If you can't complete 65% of your passes and throw 30 touchdowns, forget about it. I remember in the 80s, it was a handful of guys. You could count them on fingers that threw 4,000 yards. Now, look at last year. 5 guys threw for 5,000 yards. Come on, will ya? Tom Brady broke Dan Marino's passing record, and he was still 100 yards behind Drew Brees. And now this year, what Manning did, hey, bravo, you know what? One of the great regular season quarterbacks of all time, which brings my little, horse and chicken show right back to the beginning. Regular season. Sure. You're playing against certain teams, and the quarterback is so protected that what happens? You can put up any numbers. You can put up phone numbers. But how do you compare that to a guy like Unitas that played outside in the snow, in the elements, on bad fields? Those fields in the 60s, they look like bad schoolyard playgrounds. Look at the film. Don't just believe me. Everybody went for the knees back then. Quarterback's knees. Quarterback got leveled on every play. Unitas, 47 touchdowns, 47 consecutive games with a touchdown. How do you argue that stat? Now, yes, Drew Brees beat it recently, and Brady almost took over that record too, but come on, you're going to compare what happened in the 60s? Can't take away what Joe Montana accomplished, 4 Super Bowls, and he did what he did before the rule changes got ridiculous. For my money, when anytime anybody talks about the greatest of all time, Unitas before 70, Montana after 70. All the rest, you can give me all your arguments you want. Look at the film, and you tell me you don't agree with me after looking at the film. And that's all I got to say. Peyton Manning, great regular season quarterback. Don't even come to me with any of this till maybe he wins a few more rings and he carries the team.
Welcome back. Having just finished the Super Bowl with the 2 pothead states in the United States in the running, and they're celebrating in Seattle and they're crying in Denver, but either way, I guess they're getting high over it. Ryan Clark of the Steelers came out and said the NFL has to legalize marijuana for the players because it treats pain, treats anxiety, and maybe treats post-concussion syndrome.
Yeah, then he came out and says, I don't use it.
Yeah, okay. Not that I have any personal experience on this, says Ryan Clark. But I did happen to look up what the data is. And there is data looking at marijuana in cancer patients as far as pain relief, which is not the same as National Football League pain. And there is anecdotal use in post-concussive syndrome. Now, after people have a concussion, they often have problems with memory, with concentration, with headache, with focus, and this can last for months, and sometimes years in certain players. So the players are interested in studying it and finding out whether there's any benefit, and only time is going to tell where that sorts out.
Now tell me, how does marijuana help? Why does it?
I don't understand how it can help in post-concussive. If you're confused, how do you take something that should make you more confused and make you straight?
Marijuana, it's known to dull your senses.
Well, certainly there's been a lot of data on automobile accidents in areas where there's marijuana, and not surprisingly, there's higher accident rates.
Well, what did I tell you? Where I work, there are more and more people, kids, more and more kids getting arrested for operating under the influence of drugs, marijuana. There was 3 in 1 week, a couple of weeks ago, that I went up there and all 3 people were arrested. OUI, drugs, marijuana. So if people think, oh, it's all right to take marijuana now.
I think it'll be really interesting because I don't think 20 years ago you could have ever envisioned a scenario where people were actively encouraging its use for medical purposes to the degree that this has developed across the United States.
No, marijuana is definitely bad for you. It's real bad for you. I mean, for these states that are legalizing it all the way through, marijuana is bad for you. It's that simple. It may help people. I'm not sure about the medical side, but marijuana is bad for you, and it leads to other drugs. So these people that think, oh, it's okay now, you're not going to go to court because if you have less than an ounce on you, you can't be charged with possession of marijuana. If you have more than an ounce, you can be charged.
Oh, if you have less, but you're driving impaired, you can still be charged, of course, correct?
Yeah, that's if
Right.
you're driving impaired, OUI drugs. You're operating under the influence of drugs, just like alcohol.
So why don't you tell people what a young person would face, or an older person, for an OUI drugs?
Well, the first time, they would lose their license for, 30 days automatically, and then if you plea out to a 24D disposition, it's 45-day loss of license. But you're also paying $600 in fines. You're paying another $65 a month for 12 months, which comes to $780. It's another $780 there. You got to
What
go.
are you paying that for?
You're paying that for probation fees, $65 a month. And if it's a 2-year suspension, there's $780 and $780. That's $1,560. So you're paying $1,560. And that's not counting the $600. And that's not counting close to $1,000 in the treatment you need. And you got to do treatment. Now, if you just get a guilty in 1 year, without going to program, it's a 1-year loss of license. And if you're under 21, it's a 210-day loss of license. So those 3 kids that I bailed out a few weeks ago are all losing their license for 210 days, and they're paying $780 plus another $600, $1,380 plus another $700, $2,000 for thinking that it's all right to smoke marijuana. But they should know also, if you're going to smoke the marijuana, you don't drive under the influence. But more and more of these kids are getting charged with OUI drugs for marijuana because you can't get convicted of just possession of marijuana.
Well, I think the other thing is, you say, certainly as a physician, I wouldn't want a patient to say, oh, it's okay if the doctor has chronic pain, but he needs marijuana. Well, how's that going to help my judgment?
But it's proven, though, too, Ron, that it leads to other drugs. It leads to other drugs. If you start with marijuana, a lot of people, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's very high.
Well, there's already, as we know from Philip Seymour Hoffman's untimely death, there's already plenty of problems with narcotic use in the United States. Now, marijuana is not a narcotic, but it is historically had been considered a class 1 drug.
But these states are crazy. The argument you hear from lawyers when I get into little discussions with lawyers, they say, well, what about liquor? What about liquor? Liquor's not illegal, if you're over 21 or over, but you can't drive. So their argument is, well, marijuana, as long as you don't drive, you're all right if it's under an ounce. If you have more than an ounce, and then you have it in package, you can get charged with possession of Class D marijuana with intent to distribute. Now that becomes a crime. So if there's an argument going on now, they have in the appeals court, if you have packets of marijuana, say you have 10 different packets of marijuana and it's still under an ounce, there's an argument that says you can't charge them with possession of Class D with intent to distribute. But I mean, these kids are getting in trouble because they don't know.
Well, speaking of performance-altering drugs, the Red Sox contract negotiations are coming up. John Lester has said he will take a hometown discount, but he won't take a market-altering discount, whatever that means. So I'm thinking 5 years, $25 million a year, something like that for Lester.
And I wouldn't give it to him. I don't think the Red Sox will.
Well, we'll see. And then, of course, David Ortiz is looking for a contract extension. The Red Sox apparently are willing to discuss 1 year, but not 2. And then, even worse, Stephen Drew apparently is still hanging on for a 3-year contract from the Red Sox. What is the fascination with Stephen Drew?
But another thing, too, is, though, Ron, how does Middlebrooks feel? Middlebrooks' whole career depends on what he does. If Drew is signed by the Red Sox, there goes Middlebrooks.
Well,
he's going to go between the minors and their team. He'll be going back and forth all year long, or they'll trade him.
I think his name is Andrew Kaufman, wrote an article for the Globe saying, Drew is coming back. I know he's coming back. So I had sent a message to him saying, as usual, it's the Red Sox trashing the young guys, ex-Boggs and Middlebrooks. I don't care. Middlebrooks slammed into the retaining wall in Fenway, hurt his back and ribs, a la Jacoby Ellsbury, tried to come back too soon, struggled, got sent back to the minors, came back, performed reasonably, did get charged with obstruction in the World Series, but he's a young guy with a lot of power and reasonable potential under their control at low dollars. Am I saying the guy is Mike Schmidt? No, but he's not a piece of junk.
Here's Middlebrooks. Between 275 to 285 hitter. That's what he is. 30 home runs, 90 RBIs to 100. You got him at third base for how many years?
Well,
just leave him alone and leave him there.
The Red Sox are saying, well, he's going to strike out on breaking stuff off the plate. Well, excuse me, has anybody watched Mike Napoli? He's the same type of hitter as Napoli. He doesn't make as much contact all the time, but Napoli had, what do you have, 195 strikeouts last year?
If the Yankees had Middlebrooks at third base next year, they'd win the championship. They'd be the champions. With Middlebrooks at third, that's the one player they need. They need a player like him at third base.
Well, old-time baseball guys, they always want these grizzled veterans kind of guys, the Edgar Renterias. We saw how useful he was while he was here.
But Drew's going to the Mets, I think.
I hope so.
But I just hope Middlebrooks, I mean, I like him as a player. I liked him when he came up. He got hurt. They sent him to the minors because he was struggling a little. He had already proven that he could play in Major League Baseball. Why did they send him down to the minors? Because he was in a little slump. If they look at Ortiz 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, I don't think he's a bad guy. I haven't heard anything that he's a terrible person. He obviously seems to be reasonably congenial. He's got a nice girlfriend.
Yeah.
Jenny Dell, for people who don't know. And I just don't understand the Drew thing.
But the thing, too, is Ortiz, if I were the Red Sox, I'd give him the money, and you know why I'd give him the money. You know
Yeah,
why.
I know why.
Because there's no way. In the next 2 years, he's still going to hit good.
Yeah, as long as he's,
On his-
taking those vitamins, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
And
Now,
then that's all they have to think about.
if you said which team in Major League Baseball will improve the most from last season to this season,
Yankees.
well, the Yankees weren't a bad team last year. The
Yeah,
problem is they didn't score enough runs because of injuries.
But to me, they'll improve the most. I mean, look
if
at
they're
them.
going to have the most win increase,
They got the biggest, to me, the number one problem they had was Cano.
Well, what
And
they-
you loved him.
how many games did they win last year? 84?
86, I think.
I thought, well, anyway, somewhere in the
Oh.
mid-80s.
They'll win about 98 this year. The Red Sox
Oh.
will win 96.
Well, anyway, I'm going to pick, believe it or not, Los
Dodgers?
Angeles Angels. No, because the
Oh, they
Angels
have to
were
do better.
the Angels were horrible, but they were 67 and 62 after an initial terrible start. Certainly, Pujols can't be as bad as he was. Josh Hamilton can't be as bad as he was. And they got Freese from the Cardinals. He's a decent player. They lost Trumbo. You lose something. I think the Angels will be a lot better.
Oh, you have to pick, right? The Yankees or the Red Sox? Who would you pick?
I'll pick the Yankees. I don't even know how the Red Sox won last year.
The Red Sox are doing nothing at all. They lose probably their best player in Ellsbury. They lose him, and the fans are all applauding because they think that's what really makes me laugh.
Oh,
They think the Red Sox made out in this deal. They thought the Yankees blew it by giving him.
Well, the Yankees spend a lot of money, but that doesn't make them a bad
But
player.
it's funny what the Red Sox fans think.
If you have all the money in the world, you can spend it, and there's no harm done to the Yankees. Maybe if you're a Yankee fan and you're paying $500 a seat.
Just like if you have plenty of money and you buy a house for $1 million, is that stupid? Or if someone who pays $500,000 for a house?
If it,
You got the money, you're going to pay for it. Well, the Yankees have the money. They got Ellsbury.
exactly. So the Yankees improved themselves with Beltran, Ellsbury, and the catcher McCann, and they got Tanaka, who's
Pineda's finally healthy again.
Well, we'll see what Pineda. I mean, the guy's never thrown a pitch
They got
in
the
anger.
5 A's.
Yeah, well, we'll find out.
But you know what makes me laugh too, though? Really, I sometimes I joke around, but Red Sox fans aren't the brightest. They really aren't.
Well, the Celtics had a very disappointing week because they've won 2 games this week, which is very frustrating.
Very depressing.
Very frustrating for those of us who saw them as a bottom 3 team, because they really need to keep losing. And one thing about Rondo is he makes Jeff Green a lot better player.
Rondo's going. Rondo's going. I'm hoping he has a triple-double. I'm hoping one game he scores 30 points, gets 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 10 steals, and some team goes crazy and trades for him. Like my son said, yeah, if they trade from this, what do you think the Celtics are going to get someone for him? But
Well,
I mean, he's got to go.
Well, the latest talk is LeBron James to the Clippers. Have you heard that? To be out there with Doc Rivers?
They're going to trade him?
No, I don't know. I think he can.
Well,
I
he's
think
up next year,
I
isn't
think
he?
he's got an opt-out.
Well, he knows Wade's getting worse and worse with his
Right.
knee.
But in the NBA right now, there's a bunch of pretty good teams. You have the top teams, Indiana, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and Miami. But not so far behind are Portland and Houston.
Portland's not good, though. I mean, they're young. I mean, they're good, but they're not good enough to
They're real balanced. I don't know if they have
I
enough.
like Houston.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's got Howard, they got James Harden, a guy who can
Parsons.
really shoot, Chandler Parsons. They got a point guard Beverly, and they've got Jeremy Lin also. So they're a pretty good team, and they've got the power inside. The problem for the Houston is they're in the West, so they're going to have to beat so many good teams to get past out there.
Golden State's not too bad either. That Curry's unbelievable.
There's a wonderful Stephen Curry video on YouTube, and Alan Stein, the athletic trainer at DeMatha, is talking about the initial Kobe Bryant point guard or shooting guard camp. There are 20 top shooting guards from high school and 10 more from college. So they bring in Curry, and Alan Stein says, the first day says, Curry's going to be the best player by far of everyone there as far as shooting. So Curry's out half an hour before it's supposed to start. Curry's warming up. He's warming up his shot. He said Curry's made 150 shots. He's all in a full sweat. He's ready to go when they're starting. And he said the guy's work ethic is incredible. So people say, well, you know, how do you know he's going to last? Well, they said, well, he shot like that in high school. He shot like that in college. His father was an NBA great shooter. The guy is a great shooter with a great work ethic. He's not going away.
What's his brother doing? His brother was a great shooter at Duke.
I don't know.
I wonder. I don't know where he went, but he was another excellent shooter. So, but he's unreal. That Golden State's got a good team.
Yeah,
A lot of good teams out
the
there.
West has a lot of good teams, and the East has a lot of not very good teams.
No, and I'm just hoping the problem is the Celtics. What are they playing now? They're playing
They just
Sacramento.
yeah.
They're playing Sacramento next game. And if they start winning, I mean, they're still going to be in the lottery, though. They'll never make the playoffs.
Right. Well, people today were discussing whether there needs to be a playoff to get into the worst pick. So, for example, you take the bottom 8 teams, and then you have to win the playoff to get the #1 pick. So you can't try to just drag yourself down to the bottom and hope to get #1. So
Well, that's stupid.
So it'd be a second. It'd be
Who said that?
I don't know.
Well, just think about it. You got to win it to get the #1 pick out of the 8. That means you're the best team out of the 8.
Right. Well, that's
So
because
why are you getting the last best pick?
because you can't just go in the tank and try to get the last pick by playing terrible. So you have to care. You have to work the whole season to get yourself
Well,
into.
the reason why you're going into the tank because you stink anyway, right? That's
Well-
the reason why you're going into the tank because you're stinking you can't make the playoffs.
Well, the Celtics don't have a center. When we talk about the core roster of the Celtics, I don't even know what that is right now. You know, Sullinger's too small. Olynyk's not good enough.
Rondo drives me nuts.
Well, I know. You know, he drives into the middle and he pitches it out. But it's always the shot is coming in the last 4 to 6 seconds.
But people who know the game, people who really enjoy the game, I mean, the kids love watching them, all right? But the people who really know the game, you don't want to watch him leading the team over the next, 6 years, 7 years?
It slows the ball movement down to a crawl once
No,
he
it's
gets the
not.
ball. There was a nice play last night where Rondo pitched it back to Sullinger, and Sullinger threw it over to Green for a 3. It was really, well executed, good basketball, but it doesn't happen that much. Well, Rondo wants the assist. He doesn't want the hockey
Did you hear
assist.
Heinsohn last night about Sullinger?
No.
Someone finally said something. Remember last year I said Sullinger's 20 pounds overweight?
Yeah.
For a guy that can't jump, you would think he'd be in the best shape of his life. Heinsohn goes, Sullinger's having a tough time getting up the floor. He's carrying too much weight. He has to lose about 30 pounds.
Right. But it'll be interesting as we get into the last couple of weeks before the trade deadline to see who do the Celtics move. I mean, you could move Bass, Green, Sullinger, Rondo, Humphreys, who has value.
I think Humphreys would be the #1 guy teams would want.
Right.
A good defensive player, big man, a guy that can run the floor. You'd think a lot of the teams would love to have a guy like him. Green, when he's on, he's tremendous, but he's not on
Right,
enough.
too inconsistent. Well, I've enjoyed being with you tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph Labella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.